up, nerds? My name is Leslie Smith, and on this channel, I like to talk with you about all of the things that I read. I read in many, many different genres. I'm constantly adding new genres as I discover them, so you never know what you might hear me talk about from week to week. Typically, I stick to the science fiction, fantasy, horror, comics, and manga. I also try to include at least one classic or literary fiction and nonfiction. For today's episode of Fun, I'm bringing to you my May monthly wrap-up. This is where I will quickly recap all of the books that I read, the star rating that I gave them, and just a few thoughts about each. If any of the books that I talk about today you want more information on, or you would like to talk with me more about it, check the description box down below for a link to my Discord. You can find me there. I would be happy to answer any questions or talk more in depth about any of these books. For my ratings, I do use the 5-star rating method because that is what Goodreads uses, and it's just easier to keep it more streamlined. If I'm going to use it in some place, I'm going to use it all places and just make it easier on myself. So 1 star, it means that I did read the book, but there was a lot of problems with it. A lot. 2 stars means that I didn't like the story per se, but I really liked the author's writing style. So 2, there's potential there. That's somebody I'm gonna explore more of their stuff of and just see if there's a pattern. Now, if I read another book by them that's just as bad, we done. 3 stars, I enjoyed it. I had some issues with it, but I still enjoyed the book. I thought it was good. 4 stars, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. But there was one something that just brought it down for me. Either it had a great world building and plot, but maybe not good character work. You know, one of the main things that I look at when I read a book for enjoyment, one of those was a little less than satisfactory. 5 stars, I have no problems with that book whatsoever. I loved everything about it, and that is likely an auto by author for me. First up is this chunker. Yeah, this is a big one. This is the first volume of the Jeff Johns omnibus of the Green Lantern. This is a fantastic series. I gave it 4 stars for the entire collection, but there are a lot of the chunks or graphic novels I would have given 5 stars to. I love the story. The story gets 5 stars, but if I'm just going off the entire bind up, I gave it 4 because there were some artists that I didn't enjoy their work. And that did detract a little bit because when you're looking at something visually, the pictures are just as much a part of the story as the conversation, the dialogue. And there were a few artists I didn't particularly care for. So I gave this overall bind up volume 1 4 stars. Next, we'll get into my nonfiction read for the month of May, and that is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor E. Frankl. 5 stars. This is the one book I would recommend to every person on this planet. Now, would I recommend it for kids? No. When they grow up a little bit, like, this would make a great graduation present for seniors, high school seniors, college seniors. Just, this book is amazing. This book, as soon as I finished it, I wanted to reread it. While I was reading it, I wanted to reread it, and oftentimes would reread several statements, passages. It's an amazing book. It can be used for so many different things. It's just inspirational. It's tragic. It's just phenomenal. This is one that belongs in your libraries, guys. I loved it. I'm very much looking forward to rereading it again, probably the next couple of months. I only dipped into science fiction for 1 book this month, and that is Iron Gold, which is the first book in the second trilogy of the Red Rising series by Pierce Brown. And I will tell you, do not go with the audiobook for this one. I am not the only one who didn't like the audiobook. I did talk to some of the other people that are taking part in the Discord by Buddy Read on the Library of Alexandria for this series. They didn't like them either. Something about the narrators just didn't work. But the book itself is great. I love that we're getting into multiple points of view. What Pierce Brown was able to do with the story, having multiple points of view, just worked. In fact, I think it would have worked better if the first trilogy had multiple points of view. Just because some of the things he did just didn't make sense told from first person. But I won't go into it any further than that because it's deep off into a series that if you haven't read the first three, it wouldn't make any sense and would spoil the first trilogy. But this is definitely a favorite science fiction series of mine at this point. Love it. Can't wait to finish it. Dipping into my horror reads, I read Mongrels by Stephen Graham Jones. This is a unique telling of werewolves. And I just really appreciated what Stephen Graham Jones was able to do with this story. I did do a dedicated review for it that's already up on the channel. I'll have the link in the description box down below as well as in the cards. So check that out for more information. But because I have that available, I won't waste any more time on it here, except to tell you this author is a genius. This book further cemented that fact, and I can't wait to read more. My other read in horror was Betty by Tiffany McDaniel. This story is so full of trauma. It's every trigger warning you can imagine is in this book. The descriptions, it's just lyrical. I was blown away by the prose of Tiffany McDaniel. That alone is worth reading this book for. But the story is so tragic. It's about Betty, which is the name of Tiffany's mother, and I believe it is based on Betty's story. As a child of mixed race, her mother was white, her father was Cherokee Indian, and just what that meant growing up in the 1930s, 1940s. Tragic, very tragic, but it also had heartwarming moments and just a thread of hope that was just tying this whole story together the whole way through. While it hurt to read it, I'm glad that I did. And I will actually reread this book again because I think it's one that's going to hit different as I reach different stages of my life. Just things your future holds as you continue in life. But yeah, this one made an impact. The bulk of the rest of this monthly wrap up is fantasy. Two of these go together, so I'll just talk about them together. I did complete book 3 and 4 of Stephen King's Dark Tower series, The Wastelands and Wizard and Glass. Both are 5-star reads for me. No surprise there. This series is amazing. It is going to be a top favorite of mine. Not only fantasy, but top series of all time. And while I have loved every book in this series, every book has been a 5-star read for me. Right now, Wizard and Glass holds first place. It is my favorite book in the Dark Tower series so far. Now I say that, I'm about to start Wolves of the Calla, and I've heard some pretty amazing things about it. But both of these books, just like Gunslinger and Drawing of the Three, each one of these completely different than the one before it, and I am so in love with that. I love how Stephen King is able to keep turning this series on its head. Every book, it's different. And I actually started out The Wastelands thinking, this is stupid, I'm not gonna like this. Boy, did that change fast. Next is Winds of Strife by Yuji Gutman. I read it on Kindle, and I was like, man, I wish I had the physical version so I could refer to those charts that he provided that listed out the magic system, which is based on emotion. And he sent me one, and I'm so excited. A dedicated review is going to be coming of this one, but I'm waiting on something special before I do that. But this, I gave a 4-star rating to. I love the characters. I really love the magic system. If you're a fan of Brandon Sanderson's different magic systems, I think you would be a very big fan of this. Another thing I want to tell you about this one, this one is a mixed breed. It is fantasy, but it's got a lot of darker horror elements to it. There is some trauma that is in this book. There are some trigger warnings such as mental disorders, manipulation, domestic abuse, things you typically find in a horror story. I haven't read many horror stories that didn't start off with a very traumatic experience. And as a horror reader, I expect that. And because I love horror and I love fantasy, this book I really enjoyed. But if you are strictly a fantasy reader, I think if you don't know going in that it has those elements, that you might not enjoy it because you weren't expecting it. So just be aware of that going in, and I think that will help enhance your reading experience of it. But I enjoyed it very much. I'm looking forward to rereading it and delving deeper on the characters this time, because I really focused on the magic system the first time, which tells you this book has great reread capability, which is always a good thing, especially when you're a rereader like I am. I'm eagerly awaiting book 2, but in the meantime, I plan on enjoying this one at least one more time before we get the second book. And I mean, this cover is just so gorgeous. Indie and self-pub authors have the most gorgeous cover. Like, look at this. Look at that. That's, oh, I gotta put it, like, look at that. Look how gorgeous that is. Now, I'm going to go straight from one self-pub author to another. That is The Rave by J.R. Trask. Again, self-published. Look how gorgeous. And this one wraps around. Like, I can't get over how beautiful these books are. So The Rave is the first book in the Alf Raver trilogy, and I cannot wait for book 2. And I will go ahead and say I can't wait for book 3. I need this trilogy to be completed as soon as possible. I have talked to so many of my friends into reading this, and one has already read it. Like, she read it in, I swear, 2 days. It's that good. You don't even know. It sneaks up on you. It's a YA fantasy. It's a mystery, but it just sneaks up on you and gets you. You just don't see it coming. Like, I warned my friend that's already read it. I told her, I'm like, look, you're gonna get like 100 pages in, and it's gonna sink its claws into you, literally. And you're not going to realize that you're not moving because you just want to read this book until you finish it. She was sending me messages and telling me where she was and her thoughts as she was reading it, which consequently made me decide to start a channel for it in my Discord, because I've got a few friends reading it now and some that are planning to read it in June. But this book is amazing. Amazing. The characters, the world building, the plot. There were no faults in this book whatsoever, in my opinion. Next up, I have a little urban fantasy here called An Unkindness of Magicians by Kat Howard. I read this book in 2 days. I loved it. It is fun, it is fluffy, it has a great magic system that I really enjoyed, because these magicians did magic at a cost. And I love that. That kind of thing just fascinates me. The characters weren't really deep at all. It is strictly a plot-driven story, very light, just fun and fluffy. If you're looking for something complex, you're not going to find it here. This is one that's a great palate cleanser, but it was a super fun, fast read for me. I was asking around hoping that it was the start of a series, but from what I have found, it's a standalone. However, this tells me Kat Howard is an author I need to check more of her stuff out, so I will definitely be doing that. But I loved In the Kindness of Magicians. I gave it 4 stars. I dropped a star because the characters weren't really fleshed out that well. I think if they had been developed a little bit more, it would have been a better, more well-rounded story. It would have made it a little longer, sure, but you're never going to hear me complain about that. And finally, I finished the 5th season, which is the first book in the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. I loved it. 5 stars. 5 stars. 5 stars. I'm going to go ahead and give that whole trilogy a preemptive 5-star rating. I'm going to read everything this woman writes. Her writing style is amazing. And I do get that a lot of people may not like it, how she writes it, and changes it from chapter to chapter, but to me, for somebody who reads a lot, it was very refreshing. I found it interesting. It kept me entertained and engaged and just wanting to know more. The way she weaved this story was unreal. I just could not believe what a fantastic storyteller this woman is with this. It's a tragic story. It's about people, and they live in different communities, and there are different classes and types, and there's one type that the people as a whole treat differently. They hate them, they want to kill them, or they want to separate them. But yet when they need help doing stuff they can't do themselves, oh, they want these people to come help them. And everybody accepts this. The people who treat them this way, the people that are receiving this treatment, it's expected. They expect it of each other. And the people who are the victims of this racism, if somebody were to speak kindly to them, they are like, what's wrong with you? And it's just accepted until one day, one person says, no, this isn't right. It is a fantastic tale. Even if it stopped right here, I would have no complaints. But I'm excited that it's a trilogy. I'm very excited to continue the trilogy. I'm even more excited that she signed rights to like do movies or TV series. All of her stories are going to be screen adaptations. I'm stoked. I cannot wait to see what happens in the future regarding N.K. Jemisin. But I'm going to read everything by her. She is an auto-by-author for me after one read. And so that will take care of the 11 books that I read in May. And to be fair, I was mostly done with The Wastelands and Winds of Strife when I started the month of May. They're only here because I finished them in May. So honestly, I really only read 9 full books in the month of May. It was a great reading month. Anytime you have all 4 and 5 star reads, that's a great reading month. I've got no complaints whatsoever. And for those of you kind of looking at me sideways at your screen right now because they're 4 and 5 stars, I am really good at picking stuff I'm going to love. If I don't think I'm going to love it, I don't take a chance on it because there's too many things I want to read. I hope you enjoyed this video today. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I would love it if you would consider clicking that subscribe button on your way down to the comments to tell me, have you read any of the books I talked about today? Or is there 1 or 2 I mentioned that you're now interested in reading? And for any of the books that you've read, I'd love to hear in the comments what you liked about it, or if it didn't work for you, I would love to hear that too. All of that kind of information helps people who are looking at these videos for recommendations for stuff they may want to try. So anything you can put down below definitely helps. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you've had a great morning. I hope the rest of your day is absolutely amazing. Take good care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.